This one's haunting. A family home, it becomes the setting for just a tragedy that, defies comprehension. A grandmother, Sandra Layne, takes the life of her own grandson, 17-year-old Jonathan Hoffman. What could lead to such a devastating act?
What's so chilling is that this isn't just about a crime, right? It's about this shattering of a bond that's supposed to be, I mean, unbreakable, right? The image of a grandmother as a protector, a source of love, and it
Mm.
clashes violently with the reality of what transpired.
It starts with a frantic 911 call.
Hmm.
Jonathan's voice filled with terror, pleading for help, telling the operator his grandmother shot him, and then the sound of more gunshots echoing through the phone line.
That 911 call, it's a window into the raw terror of those final moments, right? Jonathan knew he was in mortal danger, and tragically, the person he was calling for help from was the source of that danger.
When the police arrived at the scene, Sandra Lane, uh, she didn't hesitate. Her words, "I murdered my grandson." A chilling confession with no room for interpretation. But as the investigation unfolded, the story took a sharp turn.
Lane recanted that initial confession, right, and claimed self-defense. She alleged that Jonathan, in a fit of rage, had attacked her, forcing her to use deadly force to protect herself. But some of the evidence seemed to tell a different story.
Investigators found 10 bullet casings scattered throughout the house. It paints a picture of a chaotic struggle, right?
Mhm.
However, they couldn't find any visible injuries on Lane to corroborate her claims of being physically assaulted.
That discrepancy between her statement and the physical evidence, it raised serious questions, right? And it forced investigators to delve deeper into Jonathan's life, to understand what might have led to such a tragic confrontation.
Jonathan's life, it turns out, it was far from idyllic.
Mm.
His parents' divorce, his sister's ongoing battle with a serious illness, a recent move to Michigan to live with his grandmother, and a history of struggles with drug use and probation. It painted a picture of a young man facing immense pressure.
It's a complex web of factors that undoubtedly weighed heavily on Jonathan. You have to wonder, could any of these challenges, these burdens he was carrying, have contributed to the events of that day?
And while the toxicology report, it did reveal that Jonathan had spice in his system,
Yeah.
experts concluded it wasn't actively influencing him at the time of the shooting. This wasn't a case of a drug-fueled rampage, as the defense later tried to portray.
The prosecution, focusing on the evidence, argued that Lane had ample time to reflect between those shots, those pauses in that horrifying 911 call. They also pointed to the fact that she instructed her husband to leave the house with their dog, suggesting a level of premeditation, a chilling thought.
The idea of premeditation is crucial here, isn't it? It suggests that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act of self-defense, but rather something planned in advance.
Exactly. Premeditation implies a conscious decision to take a life, a level of intent that goes beyond reacting to an immediate threat. And the prosecution believed they had the evidence to prove it.
But Lane's defense team, they painted a different picture. They portrayed Jonathan as a troubled teenager with a history of anger issues fueled by drug use, posing a genuine threat to his grandmother's safety. They were building a case for self-defense, a desperate attempt to save her life.
And adding another layer of complexity to this already tangled web of relationships, Jonathan's mother, Jennifer, took the stand. Her testimony was emotionally charged, describing a history of dysfunction within her family and a strained relationship with her own mother, Sandra Layne.
So we had these two contrasting narratives emerging. The prosecution, they're building a case around premeditation, and the defense arguing self-defense. But then a crucial moment during the trial shifted everything, a moment that sent a ripple through the courtroom, a moment of stark confession.
It was during her own testimony, under the intense scrutiny of cross-examination, that Sandra Layne admitted to a motive that contradicted her self-defense claim. She revealed that she grabbed the gun not because she feared for her life, but because she wanted to make Jonathan listen. That admission, it changed everything, right? It cast a dark shadow over her claims of self-defense. Was this truly an act of a terrified grandmother protecting herself, or was it something far more sinister?
It's almost unimaginable, right? A grandmother resorting to deadly force, not to protect herself from imminent danger, but to make her teenage grandson listen.
The prosecution, they seized on that confession, right, highlighting the fact that she had other options, other ways to handle the situation. They argued that resorting to a firearm was an extreme and unnecessary response, even if Jonathan was being difficult or defiant, right?
Yeah.
They painted a picture of a woman who chose a path of irreversible violence.
So we're left with this haunting question, right? Was this a a tragic outcome born out of fear and desperation, or a calculated act driven by anger and the desire for control?
And as the trial progressed, the jury was tasked with answering that very question. They had
Yeah.
to sift through the conflicting narratives, the emotional testimony, and the physical evidence to determine the truth.
What was the jury's verdict? What did they ultimately decide about
Right.
about Sandra Layne's
Yep.
actions that day?
After careful deliberation, weighing the evidence and the arguments presented, the jury found Sandra Layne guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in prison.
20 years. That's a significant sentence, especially considering her age. It seems the jury rejected her claims of self-defense
Yeah.
and saw this as a case where a grandmother in a moment of anger or frustration took the life of her grandson.
It's a verdict that speaks to the weight of the evidence and the jury's belief that Sandra Layne's actions they went beyond the bounds of self-defense. They saw this as a case of a grandmother who had other options, other paths she could have chosen, but instead she chose the path of violence.
This case, it's more than just a legal battle, isn't it? It raises profound questions about family dynamics, the limits of self-defense, and the tragic consequences that can arise from unresolved conflicts.
Absolutely. It compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about the potential for violence within families, even those that seem from the outside to be loving and supportive.
Jonathan's past struggles, his history of drug use and run-ins with the law, they undoubtedly played a role in the events that unfolded. But ultimately, it was his grandmother's choice to use a firearm, a choice that ended his life and forever changed the lives of everyone involved.
This tragedy, it underscores the importance of addressing underlying issues within families, the need for open communication, and the critical role of seeking help when conflicts escalate beyond our ability to manage them peacefully.
It's a chilling reminder that even within the confines of a family where love and support are expected, things can spiral out of control, leading to unimaginable heartache and loss.
This case, it leaves us grappling with a sense of unease, a sense of what if, right? What if Sandra Layne had chosen a different path? What if Jonathan had received the support and guidance he so desperately needed?
It's a tragic reminder that sometimes the people we're supposed to trust the most, the ones who should be our protectors, can become the source of our greatest harm. It's a thought that lingers long after the verdict is read and the case is closed. It all started with an argument, right? And an everyday occurrence in many families. But in this case, it escalated to a point of no return. What sets this apart? What pushes a seemingly ordinary conflict to such a horrific end?
This case, it highlights the fragility of human life and the devastating consequences of unchecked anger, right? It's
Yeah.
a stark reminder that we need to be
Right.
mindful of how we handle conflict, especially within our families.
Sandra Layne had that gun in the house. It makes you wonder if its presence played a role in her fatal decision, right? If the gun hadn't been readily available, would the outcome have been different?
It's impossible to say for certain, right? But the accessibility of firearms, it undoubtedly plays a role in many cases of domestic violence and impulsive acts of aggression. It's a question that haunts us, a chilling reminder of the responsibility that comes with owning a firearm.
This case, it leaves us with a lot to unpack. Family dynamics, teenage struggles, a grandmother's desperate plea for control, and ultimately a fatal choice that ended one life and shattered countless others. Where do we even begin to process all of this?
I think that the key takeaway here is the importance of recognizing warning signs and intervening before it's too late, right? Jonathan was clearly a young man in need of support and guidance.
So what can we learn from this tragedy? What steps can we take to prevent similar situations from unfolding in other families?
We need to be aware of the resources available to families dealing with teenage substance abuse, behavioral issues and strained relationships, right? Early intervention counseling and support groups, it can make a world of difference.
In this case, it serves as a stark warning, a reminder of the devastating consequences that can arise when communication breaks down, anger takes over, and a firearm becomes the solution to a conflict.
We can honor Jonathan's memory by learning from this tragedy and working to create a world where families have the support and the resources they need to navigate challenging times and prevent such heartbreaking losses from happening again.
It's a somber reminder that behind every headline, every court case, there are real people, real families grappling with unimaginable pain. And it's a call to action for all of us to be more aware, more compassionate, and more proactive in seeking help when we see signs of trouble, whether it's within our own families or in our communities. Sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the darkest of stories.